My friends, I invite you tonight, not merely to listen with your ears, but to listen with your being. For what I will share with you is not a doctrine to memorize, nor a method to mechanically repeat. It is a living truth, a seed, that when planted in the fertile ground of your imagination shall grow into the very empire you are destined to rule. And I say unto you, act as if you are going to build an empire. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. For in the eternal present, all things are possible to him who believes. Now to say act as if is not to play pretend in the world of shadows. It is to clothe yourself inwardly in the feeling of already being that which you would be. It is to ascend within to the state desired and dwell in it with such faith and persistence that the outer world, being but a reflection, bends to mirror the inner command. This is not fiction. This is the law. Consciousness is the only reality, and your assumption, if persisted in, will harden into fact. We have been trained since childhood to react to appearances, but appearances are but projections, dead things animated by the light of our consciousness. We walk in a dream, and the dream responds not to what we want, nor to what we deserve, but to what we are. To act as if you are building an empire is to assume right now the feeling of power, of vision, of certainty, and of dominion over your life. It is to stand at the helm of your being and command the winds of circumstance to obey your will. You may say, but I have no resources, I have no influence, I have no support. To which I say, you are the source. All things come out of the imagination. The world is yourself pushed out. Everything you see, every empire that ever stood, was once but a thought in the mind of a man or woman who dared to believe in the unseen. Do not ask how it will come to pass. Your task is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and leave the how to the wisdom that shapes universes. Let us not deceive ourselves with humble masks when we are in truth creators. You are not a victim of fate. You are not the product of circumstance. You are the operant power. You are the divine imagination. Act as if you were chosen to build something great, because you are. Every desire you feel is a divine blueprint seeking expression through you. When you long to create, to lead, to elevate the world through your vision, it is God in you, your own wonderful human imagination, pressing forward into visibility. I do not ask you to strive or to struggle. I ask you to assume. Can you imagine the life you would live if you were already a builder of empires? Can you walk the earth in the feeling that what you dream is already so, not as a beggar waiting for evidence, but as a king or queen who knows that their decree is law? All that is required is a shift in consciousness. No external act is needed until it is born of the inner conviction. You must feel it real. Let me share with you a truth that has liberated many. Your reality does not come to you from without. It flows from within. The empire you seek is not out there waiting to be found. It must first be accepted as a reality in your imagination. When you persist in the assumption that you are already the one who builds, who leads, who transforms, then events, people, and resources will arrange themselves in obedience to that inner vision. I tell you, everything begins in imagination. Imagination is not idle fancy. It is the very substance of reality. All things are imagined before they are seen. The house you live in was once a thought. The chair you sit on, the device through which you hear my voice, were once unseen ideas held in the mind of a creator. Why then do you doubt that your vision of an empire is any less real? Imagination creates reality. Dare to dwell in the feeling that your empire is already born. Do not concern yourself with small thoughts. Small thoughts build small lives. You must be bold in your vision, but more importantly, you must be faithful to it. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. It is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the willingness to remain in the state of assumption even when the world screams otherwise. Your outer world will protest. It will try to drag you back to doubt, to logic, to fear. But I say persist. All progress is born from a defiance of appearances. You must act as if the future is now. Walk, speak, and think from the place you desire to be. If you would be a leader of men, then speak with the authority of one who already leads. If you would build cities, then feel the weight of responsibility and the joy of accomplishment as if the city already stood. If you would create wealth, then feel yourself in possession of abundance and act from generosity, not scarcity. Some will say this is madness, but the world has always called the visionary mad, until the vision becomes flesh. Then they call him genius. You must be willing to live in the silence of inner certainty while the world misunderstands you. You must risk being different. You must risk believing in your own mind more than in the opinions of others. This is not ego. This is truth. The God who creates worlds lives in you as your imagination. Now let us be clear. To act as if does not mean to fake. It means to feel. The world of feeling is the world of cause. When you enter a state inwardly, sincerely, and remain loyal to it, you summon its outer reflection. That is the secret of all great lives. They lived from the inside out. The emperors of history, the titans of industry, the artists and sages, they all first saw what others could not. And they believed in it long before others did. Why not you? Why not now? You were not born to live a life of quiet desperation. You were not born to merely survive. You were born to express the infinite through your finite form, to reveal through your life the grandeur of imagination in motion. When you act as if you are building an empire, you invite the universe to rise to meet your conviction. Doors will open where there were no doors. Paths will clear where there were only walls. But you must not waver. A double-minded man receives nothing. You cannot dwell in the feeling of power one day and collapse into fear the next. Your assumption must be sustained. When doubt knocks, reaffirm your vision. When fear speaks, answer it with faith. When appearances contradict your inner knowing, smile, for that is the sign you are beginning to reshape reality. Understand this. Life does not happen to you. It happens through you. You are the channel through which infinite intelligence flows. The idea of building an empire is not fantasy. It is a call, a whisper from the deeper self, urging you to remember who you are. It does not matter your age, your past, your current circumstances. The only thing that matters is the state you occupy in imagination. And the moment you assume the state, it begins to materialize. You do not need to know all the steps. You need only the next step, and that will be shown when the time is ripe. Trust the process. Trust the law. The law is always working. It cannot fail. It reflects your inner world perfectly and without bias. If you persist in feeling yourself to be the one who builds, the one who leads, the one who manifests abundance, then the law will bring it to pass. Do not wait for permission. The world will never give it. Do not wait for signs. They will not appear until you have believed. Do not wait for support. It will come only after you have claimed the state. You are the cause. You are the beginning. The moment you dare to assume, in defiance of all appearances, that you are already the architect of greatness, that moment, the world begins to mold itself accordingly. Now listen well. Nothing outside you needs to change for your life to change. You need only change the concept of yourself. And when you do, the world, like a faithful mirror, reflects the new image. If you see yourself as small, overlooked, and limited, so shall it be. If you see yourself as powerful, creative, and destined for greatness, then even the stones beneath your feet will cry out in agreement. There is no power outside of consciousness. You are not a pawn in a chaotic world. You are the dreamer, dreaming the world into being. When you awaken to this truth, you realize that the empire is not merely a goal, it is a state of consciousness, and you may enter it at any moment simply by assuming it to be true. So tonight, I urge you, go inward, quiet your mind, strip away the noise of the world, and ask yourself, what do I truly desire to build? See it, feel it, live from it. Let the walls of your imagination become more real to you than the streets of your city, and then act with the inner certainty that your vision is already here, and the outer world will not be able to resist the command of your faith. It will feel unnatural at first. Your senses will scream in protest. Your logic will demand evidence. But I tell you, the evidence comes after the belief, not before. The world reflects the assumption. If you wait to see it before you feel it, you will wait forever. But if you dare to feel it before it is seen, then it must be seen. This is the law. Think not of empire as dominion over others, but as mastery of self. The empire you build is the life you shape from the clay of consciousness. It is the art of becoming, of unfolding your potential into form. And the greatest act of creation is to live deliberately, to feel deliberately, to assume deliberately. When you assume the state of the fulfilled dream, all things conspire to make it so. And so I say again, act as if you are going to build an empire. Walk in that knowing. Speak from that place. Think from that place. Feel it as real. You are not waiting for the world. The world is waiting for you. Step into the state boldly, faithfully, and persistently, and the unseen shall become seen. The formless shall become form, and the dream shall become flesh. For you are the operant power, and your imagination is God within you.
There comes a time in your life when God no longer whispers, increase. He demonstrates it. Not by logic, not by predictable means, but through a divine shock that redefines what you thought was possible. You've looked at your bank account and believed the numbers told you the truth. But what if I told you those numbers are not your reality? They are simply the echo of your old thoughts, the shadow of what you once believed. The true balance of your life is held in the unseen, in your imagination, your conviction, your faith. The outer world cannot help but bow to the inner. When you begin to see yourself as provided for, favored, and overflowing, not as a wish, but as a fact, something begins to stir in the unseen realm. Doors you never knocked on begin to open. People you've never met begin to speak your name in rooms you've never entered. That's the language of divine economy. God does not operate through limitation. He operates through belief. When you feel abundance as though it's already yours, you invite heaven to prove you right. You see, wealth is not earned first, it's imagined first. Your hands receive what your heart already holds. And when you finally let go of fear, when you no longer measure your worth by digits on a screen, that's when God moves. Suddenly, the job comes. Suddenly, the debt is cleared. Suddenly, the account that once read empty now overflows. That's not luck. That's divine order, responding to your awakened faith. So I tell you now, stop saying, I'm waiting for my breakthrough. Start saying, my breakthrough has already been deposited in the unseen. Feel it, know it, live as though it's already done. Because in the eyes of the infinite, it is done. And when it manifests, when the unexpected payment, the favor, the opportunity comes, you'll stand there, tears in your eyes, saying, God just shocked my bank account. Not because he suddenly became generous, but because you finally became aware of the abundance that was always yours. So hold your faith, speak your prosperity, imagine your increase, for truly God is about to shock your bank account. And when he does, the world will know that belief is the greatest currency of all. Your bank account is not the source, it's only the reflection of your inner state of belief and consciousness. Most people live as though the numbers on their screen are the master and they are the servant. They wake up and check their balance first thing in the morning, and if it's low, their mood drops. If it's high, they feel a momentary lift. But that's not how divine order works. The outer world does not dictate your inner state. It is your inner state that projects itself into form and becomes your outer experience. The bank account is simply a mirror, a piece of glass, showing you what you have been inwardly assuming, believing, and expecting about your financial life. Money is energy, and energy follows consciousness. The moment you identify lack within yourself, you begin to attract conditions that confirm that lack. Not because God withholds, but because your belief filters what you allow yourself to receive. You can pray all you want, but if deep inside you believe that you are struggling, unworthy, or just barely getting by, then that belief will continue to print itself into the world of matter. It is not that the world is against you, it's that you have unknowingly agreed to the story of limitation. The invisible source, the divine mind, the creative power within, responds only to the truth you hold as real. It has no sense of humor, no bias, no favorites. It simply echoes the vibration of your awareness. When you say, "I never have enough," you instruct creation to reflect that statement. When you say, "I am always supported, I am always provided for," you call forth experiences that match that conviction. The universe does not know the difference between imagination and fact. It simply shapes reality around the feeling that dominates your consciousness. So if your current balance doesn't reflect the abundance you desire, don't fight the number. Change your inner picture. Close your eyes and see the account as full, overflowing, abundant. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the security that comes from knowing you have more than enough. Don't do this as a fantasy, but as an act of faith, a declaration that you are aligned with the infinite source of supply. You are not trying to convince the universe to give you more. You are reminding yourself that you are already connected to the source that can never run dry. Everything visible came from the invisible. Every coin, every note, every transfer began as a thought, a belief, an assumption held by someone who dared to believe in increase. The invisible is more real than what your senses show you. When you stop worshiping the number and start honoring the source, you shift from fear to faith, from scarcity to sufficiency. Then and only then will your reflection begin to change. Your task is not to chase money, but to awaken the state of consciousness that produces it. Money is the shadow of your belief, not the cause of your peace. When you understand this, you stop reacting to the mirror and start reshaping the image within. Then your bank account becomes what it was always meant to be, a reflection of divine abundance made visible through you. What you assume to be true within must mirror itself in your world. Your financial reality is not determined by luck, effort alone, or the state of the economy. It is a direct projection of your inner conviction about money, worth, and provision. Every assumption you hold, whether conscious or unconscious, shapes the circumstances that appear around you. Life does not respond to your wishes. It responds to what you believe to be already true. Assumption is not idle thinking. It is the quiet agreement you make with yourself about how life works for you. When you assume that money is hard to earn, that abundance is for others, or that opportunities always bypass you, you are writing the script that your outer world must faithfully perform. Every experience of lack, every delay, every financial setback is the shadow cast by an inner conviction. You might not speak it aloud, but your dominant assumption whispers it constantly to the universe, and the universe always obeys. On the other hand, when you assume abundance as your natural state, life has no choice but to align with that belief. The law of assumption operates with mathematical precision. It doesn't care about appearances. It only reflects the inner feeling you persist in. If you wake up every morning feeling prosperous, thankful, and secure, even if your outer circumstances don't yet agree, you are shifting the invisible patterns that control your visible world. And in due time, that inner wealth must externalize. Most people live by observation, not by assumption. They see an empty wallet and say, I am broke, not realizing they are reinforcing the very condition they wish to escape. They wait for change before they believe, but the law works in reverse. You believe first, and then you see. Belief is the seed, manifestation is the harvest. You cannot plant lack and expect prosperity to bloom. You must assume the state of already having, already being, already possessing the good you desire. This does not mean pretending or forcing optimism. It means entering the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to feel so real within yourself that your senses begin to obey your inner conviction. When you assume wealth, you walk differently, think differently, and speak differently. You make decisions from abundance, not from fear. You bless others freely because you know that giving never diminishes what comes from an infinite source. Eventually, your outer world begins to conform. Unexpected income appears, new channels open, opportunities seem to find you. But these are not coincidences. They are the natural fruits of an inner state you have faithfully occupied. You assumed abundance, and so abundance found you. The law of assumption is not a superstition or a trick. It is the fundamental truth of creation. The world is your mirror, reflecting your most persistent belief. When you change the assumption within, you change the reflection without. To transform your finances, you must transform your inner conviction from I need to I have, from I hope to I know. The moment you live from that knowing, the world cannot help but mirror your faith back to you in tangible form. The moment you see yourself as prosperous, life begins to rearrange itself to match that vision. Everything in creation begins with imagination, the divine faculty through which unseen ideas become visible form. Wealth does not start in your bank, it starts in your mind. Before a single coin moves, before a new opportunity appears, something shifts within your imagination. You begin to see yourself differently, to think from a higher place, and to embody the feeling of already possessing abundance. That inner vision becomes the blueprint life follows to construct your outer reality. Imagination is not child's play. It is the creative power of God operating through you. It is the invisible workshop where every visible success is born. The mistake most people make is waiting to see before they believe. But spiritual law works in reverse. You must believe first, and then you will see. When you dare to imagine yourself prosperous, you are not escaping reality. You are rewriting it. You are giving your subconscious mind a new picture to build from. Every image you hold with conviction impresses itself upon the unseen substance of life. If your inner vision is filled with debt, worry, and struggle, you magnetize experiences that match that picture. But when you deliberately choose to see yourself as abundant, surrounded by ease, opportunity, and provision, that image begins to draw its likeness into form. The phone call, the promotion, the idea, the open door, they are all the outpicturing of your inner imagination. To imagine prosperity is to align yourself with the truth that there is no shortage in divine supply. The universe is infinitely rich. It is only your self-image that limits what you can receive. When you close your eyes and see yourself living in comfort, contributing freely, and walking in confidence, you awaken the vibration of wealth within you. the feeling becomes your new normal. You no longer chase money, you attract it by embodying its frequency. You must imagine vividly and consistently, not from desperation, but from joy. Feel the satisfaction of knowing you are already provided for. See the numbers increasing, the opportunities expanding, the peace that comes with financial freedom. Let your imagination be so alive that your senses begin to agree with it. As you hold that picture, life begins to rearrange itself in mysterious ways. People show up at the right time, ideas spark effortlessly, and resources flow through unexpected channels. This is not coincidence. It is divine orchestration, responding to your mental image. The imagination is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. What you consistently imagine with faith becomes inevitable. The outer world is clay in the hands of your inner vision. So, see yourself as prosperous. Speak from that place, think from that place, act from that place. Let the image of abundance be so real within that the world has no choice but to manifest it without. For divine imagination is not just daydreaming, it is the sacred power through which heaven prints its riches upon the earth through you. Feeling rich before seeing riches opens the door for abundance to rush in. Gratitude is one of the most magnetic forces in the universe, a silent current that draws more of whatever you appreciate into your life. It is not a polite thank you after something good happens. It is the spiritual recognition that the good is already here, even if it has not yet appeared to your senses. Gratitude is faith made visible in feeling. It says, I know I am blessed, long before the evidence shows up. Most people wait for things to change before they feel thankful. They wait for the money to arrive, the debt to clear, or the opportunity to appear. But that is living in reaction, not creation. The law of life responds to vibration, and nothing vibrates higher than genuine gratitude. When you feel grateful before you have the physical result, you are declaring to the universe that you already possess the thing you desire in essence. That feeling of abundance begins to shift your energy, your thoughts, your expectations, and the outer world must mirror that state. Gratitude turns scarcity into sufficiency. When you begin to thank life for what you have, no matter how little it seems, you expand your awareness of how much is already flowing to you. You stop focusing on what's missing and start noticing what's present. This mental shift opens channels that were once blocked by complaint and worry. Life cannot pour more into a heart that resists, but it gladly multiplies what is joyfully received. Think of gratitude as a magnet. The more you feel it, the stronger the pull of abundance becomes. It doesn't matter how your circumstances look. When you give thanks as if you already have more than enough, you start to attract experiences that confirm your thankfulness. The promotion, the financial surprise, the new idea, these are simply reflections of your inner wealth. You have tuned yourself to the frequency of having, not lacking. Gratitude also transforms your relationship with money. Instead of seeing it as something to chase or control, you begin to see it as energy that flows naturally to appreciation. You honor what you have, and it multiplies. You give freely, not out of fear of loss, but out of the joy of participation in divine circulation. Money becomes your servant, not your master. Each morning, before checking your phone or your balance, pause and feel gratitude. Thank life for your breath, your mind, your strength, and your unseen blessings already on their way. Feel the richness of being alive, the luxury of faith, the opulence of peace. As you dwell in that state, the world begins to rearrange itself to match it. Unexpected provision appears, opportunities align, and your outer wealth begins to reflect the gratitude that has filled your inner world. To feel rich before seeing riches is to walk by faith, not by sight. Gratitude is not a reaction, it is creation. And when you live in that frequency, abundance doesn't trickle in, it rushes in, eager to meet the one who has already given thanks for it. Do not check your balance to decide what's possible. Your inner vision decides your outer increase. Faith was never meant to depend on evidence. It is the evidence of things not seen. The world teaches you to measure possibility by numbers, the digits in your account, the figures on a paycheck, the statistics of your circumstances. But faith speaks a different language. Faith looks beyond numbers, beyond appearances, beyond what can be counted, and sees only what is divinely assured. When you allow numbers to dictate your belief, you have given power to the shadow instead of the source. Your bank balance is a reflection of your past thinking, not your current potential. It shows where your faith has been, not where it is going. Yet many stare at it as though it were an eternal decree. They say, I can't afford this, or that will never happen for me, and in doing so they shut the door that faith was ready to open. Numbers can only describe, they cannot define. They are temporary expressions that shift as your consciousness shifts. Faith begins where sight ends. When you look at lack and still say, I am abundant, you are planting the seed of a new reality. When you see an empty account and feel gratitude for divine supply, you are exercising the highest form of spiritual power. The unseen responds to conviction, not calculation. The universe moves for those who believe before the evidence appears. Numbers have limits, but faith has none. Faith multiplies what logic cannot. It opens doors that reason calls impossible. Every great transformation in life begins with someone who refused to be limited by what their senses reported. The truth is, what you hold in your inner vision has more authority than any figure on a screen. The moment you see yourself as prosperous, favored, and provided for, life begins to reorganize itself to confirm that vision. Faith is not blind, it sees deeper. It knows that the unseen is the parent of the seen. When you hold a strong inner image of abundance, you activate unseen forces that start working on your behalf. People are moved, opportunities align, resources appear. You may not know how it will happen, but faith never asks how. It only knows that it will. So stop checking the balance to measure your future. Check your belief instead. What are you seeing within? Are you rehearsing lack or imagining overflow? Your account follows your awareness. When you keep your eyes on the invisible supply rather than the visible limitation, you draw from a higher law, the law of faith, which always produces increase. Faith is the currency of the unseen. The more you spend it, the richer your life becomes. Refuse to let numbers determine your joy or your vision. Fix your heart on the abundance that is already yours in spirit, and watch as the outer figures rise to meet your inner conviction. When your faith becomes feeling, God surprises you through unexpected channels. The shock is not random, it's divine orchestration. There comes a sacred moment in every believer's life when what they have been imagining, declaring, and feeling within suddenly bursts into physical form. It seems to happen overnight. as if heaven itself conspired in secret to astonish you. But the truth is, nothing sudden ever really is. The outer shock is simply the unveiling of what your faith has already created in the invisible. Faith is not mere belief. It is the living, breathing awareness of things already accomplished in spirit. When that faith matures into feeling, when you no longer hope for what you desire but feel it as already yours, you set divine law in motion. The world must conform. The people, the timing, the opportunities, all of it begins to rearrange itself to fulfill the pattern you've impressed upon the unseen, and when it manifests, you stand amazed, calling it a miracle, though it is simply divine order in action. God delights in surprising his children, not because he hides blessings, but because he loves to reveal them in ways that stretch our trust. The shock you feel is the collision of two realities: the invisible truth you carried within and the visible form that finally appears without. It is heaven meeting earth, spirit becoming substance. The divine never needs your logic, it needs your alignment. You may think your blessing will come through one avenue, a job, a person, a plan, but God often chooses another. That's why it feels so unexpected. The human mind calculates, but divine intelligence orchestrates. It connects threads you didn't even know existed. What seemed delayed or denied suddenly appears with perfect timing, reminding you that faith never fails. It only fulfills in ways beyond comprehension. When your faith becomes feeling, you no longer strain or chase. You rest in the assurance that it is already done. You speak differently, walk differently, and expect good without anxiety. And because you have released resistance, the channel clears for divine flow. Then out of nowhere, the email arrives, the door opens, the money transfers, the opportunity appears. You call it shocking, but heaven calls it scheduled. The shock of manifestation is God's way of showing you that he was working all along, even when you saw nothing. It's a reminder that the unseen realm is more real than the visible, and that once your inner conviction matches your desired outcome, the outer must bow. So never doubt the delays, never question the silence. Every quiet moment is divine construction time. Keep your faith alive, not as wishful thinking, but as felt reality. When it finally manifests, you will realize the surprise was not random. It was the echo of your own belief returning to you, magnified by grace. God's surprises are simply his promises, revealed at the perfect time. Everything you desire, every breakthrough, every increase, every financial miracle begins within you. Your outer world is simply the mirror reflecting your inner conviction. When you stop worshiping the numbers and start trusting the source, life begins to obey your faith. When you imagine prosperity, feel gratitude before the riches arrive, and believe beyond what your senses report, the universe has no choice but to respond. The invisible becomes visible. The impossible becomes inevitable. God is not limited by economy, timing, or logic. He is moved by belief. And when your faith becomes feeling, the shock of manifestation arrives. It comes suddenly, beautifully, perfectly. Your bank account begins to tell a new story, one of abundance, favor, and divine orchestration. So keep your inner world rich, guard your thoughts, speak increase, not lack, see yourself as already supplied, already favored, already blessed, because you are. The moment you live from that truth, heaven rearranges everything to match it. Your faith is the greatest investment you will ever make. and soon you will look at your life and say with awe and gratitude, God truly shocked my bank account. Mark. Thank you for watching, for believing, and for walking this journey of faith and manifestation. Stay inspired, stay faithful, and remember, abundance begins within.
Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to address something that I see destroying more manifestations than doubt, more dreams than fear, and more possibilities than disbelief combined. It is the desperate, anxious, violent energy of forcing. Perhaps you are listening to me now and you feel a certain weariness, a spiritual exhaustion. You have done everything I have taught you to do. You have affirmed, you have visualized, you have walked in the assumption of your wish fulfilled as best you know how. And yet your desire remains at a distance. Perhaps it even feels further away now than when you first began. Maybe it is money that seems to slip through your fingers no matter how tightly you grasp. A relationship that refuses to blossom, no matter how hard you chase. A career that feels stuck, no matter how desperately you push. You chase and it flees. You push and it resists. You tighten your grip and it dissolves like smoke between your fingers. What if I told you that the very effort you are applying is the only thing standing in your way? That the immense energy you are using to force your desire into being is the very reason it has not yet arrived. Tonight we will explore this delicate and most powerful art, the art of allowing. I will show you why letting go is not the same as giving up, but is in fact the highest form of faith. And I will teach you what to do instead of forcing, to finally let what you desire come to you as effortlessly and naturally as the sun rises in the morning. To understand why your intense effort may be failing you, you must first understand a strange and wonderful paradox that I have taught for years. When your will and your imagination are in conflict, your imagination will always win. The harder you try to consciously force a state with your will, while your imagination is convinced of its opposite, the more you amplify the very state you are trying to escape. Think of it like this. Imagine you are holding a cork underwater. The more you push it down, the more you feel its powerful urge to rise. The pressure builds, your effort increases, and the moment you release even slightly, it shoots to the surface with tremendous force. Your feeling of lack, your deep-seated belief that you do not have your desire, that is the cork. Your frantic effort is the force holding it down, constantly reminding you of its buoyancy, of its reality in your world. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me last year. She had been trying to manifest a specific amount of money for 6 months. Every day she visualized. Every night she affirmed. Every moment she tried to feel wealthy. But the money did not come. In fact, her financial situation was getting worse. Neville, she said, I'm doing everything you teach. I'm visualizing constantly. I'm affirming all day long. I'm forcing myself to feel abundant even when my bank account is empty. Why isn't it working? I watched her as she spoke, and I could see the tension in her body, hear the strain in her voice, feel the desperate energy radiating from her. She was like a coiled spring, wound so tight she was about to break. I said to her, my dear, you are not feeling abundant. You are forcing yourself to pretend you feel abundant. And there is a universe of difference between the two. Every time you force yourself to feel wealthy while your entire being screams, I am poor, you are actually reinforcing your poverty. You are broadcasting the frequency of lack with every strained affirmation. She looked confused. So I explained. You must understand that every feeling you entertain radiates a specific frequency. It is a broadcast. The frequency of lack is charged with anxiety, impatience, and the frantic energy of need. The frequency of fulfillment is one of peace, satisfaction, and quiet gratitude. Your effort, born of strain and force, is simply a prolonged broadcast of the frequency of lack. Think of the biblical story of Peter attempting to walk upon the water. As long as his attention was fixed upon his goal, upon the Master, he did the impossible. He defied the laws of the physical world. But the moment he looked away, the moment he saw the winds and the waves, the facts of his three-dimensional reality, doubt entered his mind. He began to sink, and in that moment of fear he began to try. He began to force himself to stay afloat, to fight against the evidence of his senses. And the more he struggled against the storm, the faster he sank. His success came from a state of calm assumption. His failure came from a state of effort born of fear. That story is your story. Your desire is the master calling to you. The winds and the waves are the doubts and contradictory facts of your current life. To struggle with them, to force against them, is to sink. Forcing is an admission to yourself that you are not in the state of the wish fulfilled. For if you truly were the person who had your desire, would you be struggling to obtain it? Would you be fighting for it? Would you be anxiously checking for signs of its arrival? No. You would be at peace. You would feel a quiet confidence. The feeling would be natural, effortless, as simple as breathing. So you see, the goal is not to try harder. The goal is to feel it differently. To feel it as normal, as simple, as natural as the air you breathe. So then, how does one cultivate this feeling of naturalness? How does one move from the violent energy of forcing to the quiet confidence of allowing? It is not accomplished by a grand single action, but by a series of subtle internal shifts. Let me share them with you now. The first shift is from getting to being. Your true work is not to acquire the thing you desire. It is to become, in imagination, the person who already has it. If you desire wealth, you do not spend your day anxiously chasing money, desperately trying to force abundance into your life. Instead, you ask yourself, what would my inner conversations be like if I were already wealthy? How would I see the world? What assumptions would I hold as true? How would I move through my day? Then you begin to think from that state. You are no longer a poor person wanting wealth. You are a wealthy person simply living your life. The difference is subtle but profound. I remember a businessman who came to me struggling with this exact issue. He had been trying to manifest a major business deal for months. Every day he visualized the contract signing. Every night he affirmed his success. But the deal kept slipping away. I asked him, "When you visualize this deal, what are you feeling?" He said, "Honestly, I feel desperate. I need this deal. Without it, my business might fail. So I'm forcing myself to see it happening. Forcing myself to believe it will work out." "There is your problem," I told him. "You are visualizing from the state of a desperate man who needs a deal to survive. But a successful businessman who has closed major deals before does not feel desperate. He feels confident, calm, assured. You must become that man in your imagination, not try to force that man into existence through strain and effort." I taught him to stop visualizing the moment of getting the deal, and instead to simply assume he was already the kind of businessman for whom such deals were natural and normal. To think from success rather than about success. Within 3 weeks, not only did that deal close, but 2 other unexpected opportunities appeared. He had stopped forcing and started allowing by becoming the person who naturally attracted such success. The second shift is understanding what it truly means to live in the end. Many of you have been taught that living in the end means constant, effortful visualization. It does not. Living in the end is a state of satisfaction. Think of how you feel after a wonderful meal. You do not continue to stare at the menu anxiously, hoping for food to arrive. You do not force yourself to feel full while your stomach is empty. You are satisfied. You are at peace. The meal is finished. That quiet satisfaction, that inner knowing that it is done, that is the true feeling of the wish fulfilled. Your imaginal act, your brief scene, implying your desire is fulfilled. That is the meal. And satisfaction is the state you must carry throughout your day. I knew a woman who wanted to marry a particular man. For months she visualized their wedding over and over again, multiple times per day, forcing herself to see every detail, straining to make it feel real. But he showed no signs of proposing. In fact, their relationship seemed to be growing more distant. When she came to me, I asked her, "After you finish visualizing your wedding, how do you feel?" She said, "I feel anxious that it hasn't happened yet. I feel worried that I'm not doing it right. I feel desperate to do it again to make sure it works." I explained to her that these feelings were the problem. You are treating your imaginal act like a task you must perform perfectly and repeatedly. But the imaginal act is meant to produce a feeling of satisfaction, the feeling that it is already done. Once you have felt that satisfaction, you should be able to rest in it like a person who has eaten a good meal. I taught her to do her imaginal scene once, at night before sleep, and then to simply carry the satisfied feeling throughout her day. To feel like a woman who was already engaged, already loved, already claimed. Not to force this feeling, but to gently assume it as her natural state. Within 2 months he proposed. She had stopped forcing the outcome and started allowing it by resting in the satisfaction of the wish fulfilled. The third shift is discovering the secret of present moment fulfillment. All desperation springs from the feeling that something is missing now. The remedy is to feel fulfillment in this moment, even before your desire appears in physical form. This does not mean denying that you want something. It means finding fulfillment in your present moment so that you are not desperately grasping for the future to be different. At the end of each day, find one thing, anything, for which you can feel genuine gratitude. The kind word someone spoke, a moment of beauty you witnessed, the comfort of your bed, the warmth of the sun on your face. By practicing the feeling of gratitude, you are practicing the feeling of fulfillment. And when you can find fulfillment in your present moment, you release the desperate need for the future to be different. In that release, the future is suddenly free to become what you have imagined. I remember a man who was desperately trying to manifest healing in his body. He was sick, in pain, and growing more anxious by the day. Every visualization of health was tainted with the desperate energy of I must get well or I will suffer forever. I taught him to find one thing each day for which he was genuinely grateful. Perhaps a moment when the pain lessened, or the kindness of a nurse, or the beauty of clouds outside his window. This practice gradually shifted him from the frequency of desperate lack to the frequency of grateful fulfillment. As he learned to feel fulfillment in his present moments, the desperate grasping for future health dissolved. And in that dissolution, his body began to heal in ways that surprised even his doctors. He had allowed healing by releasing the force of desperation. The fourth shift is building a mental sanctuary. This is a short, simple, imaginal scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled. Not the moment of receiving it, but a moment after. A moment that would only exist if your desire were already a fact. If you desire marriage, your scene could be as simple as feeling the weight of a wedding ring on your finger while washing your hands. If you desire career success, it could be a brief congratulatory conversation with a friend who says, I always knew you would do it. This scene is your anchor. When the storms of doubt arise in your day, you do not fight the doubt. Fighting doubt only gives it more power. Instead, you simply retreat to your mental sanctuary for a few seconds, feel it real, and return to your day with faith restored. This is not forcing. This is gently reminding yourself of the truth you have chosen to live from. Now, a word of caution to keep you from undoing all your good work. First, you must resist the impulse to anxiously look for your desire in your outer world. Every time you check for proof with anxiety in your heart, you are performing a powerful imaginal act of doubt. You are impressing upon your subconscious the feeling that it is not here yet. And your subconscious, unfailingly loyal, accepts that feeling as your new command and creates more experiences of not here yet. Think of a baker who has placed a cake in the oven. He has done his part. He mixed the ingredients, poured the batter, set the temperature. Now he must trust the process. He does not open the oven door every 2 minutes to see if it has risen. To do so would let out the heat and ruin the cake. Your sustained assumption, your faith, is the heat that bakes your desire into reality. Once you have placed it in the oven of your imagination, you must leave the door closed. You must trust the process. I knew a woman who was manifesting a new home. She did her imaginal act beautifully. She felt herself in the home, walking through the rooms, feeling the satisfaction of ownership. But every day she would anxiously check real estate listings, desperately searching for signs that a home was coming. Each time she searched with anxiety, she was impressing her subconscious with lack rather than fulfillment. I told her, you are baking a cake and opening the oven door every 5 minutes. You must trust that the process is working. Check listings if you feel inspired to do so, from a state of calm curiosity, but never from desperate anxiety. She learned to do her imaginal act at night, feel the satisfaction, and then go about her day without anxiously checking. Within a month, the perfect home appeared through an unexpected connection, not through her anxious searching. Second, do not discuss your desire with those who are not in sympathy with your aim. Your imaginal act is a tender new creation, a new state of consciousness. Exposing it to the cold winds of doubt and ridicule can chill your conviction, causing you to doubt your own creation. Keep your secret. Let it grow strong within you until it is ready to be born as a fact in your world. So what does this state of true allowing, of genuine detachment, actually feel like? Let me be clear. It is not apathy. It is not indifference. It is not giving up on your desire. In fact, it is the highest and most potent form of faith. It is the calm assurance of the farmer who has planted a seed in good soil. He does not fret. He does not dig it up each day to check if it is growing. He simply knows he has done his part, and the law of growth will do the rest. It is the feeling of having ordered a fine meal at a wonderful restaurant. You do not follow the waiter into the kitchen to make sure the chef is cooking. You simply relax at your table, enjoying the ambience, knowing that in due time your order will be served. It is the same assurance with which you know the sun will rise tomorrow. You do not wake each night in fear, wondering if the dawn will come. You simply know it will, and so you rest. In like manner, you must rest in the certainty of your desire fulfilled. Remember what I have taught you. Creation is finished. Everything that could ever exist already exists in the infinite realm of imagination. What you seek is not something you must create or force into being. It already is. You need only to accept it, to claim it, to assume it as yours. This state is a quiet inner peace, a release of all tension. You can think of your desire and you feel a gentle warmth, a quiet smile, not the anxious, desperate yearning of still wanting it, but the pleasant, familiar feeling of knowing it is already yours. Let me tell you about a final example that perfectly illustrates this state. A young artist came to me who had been desperately trying to manifest recognition for his work. He forced himself to paint every day. He anxiously submitted to every gallery. He checked his email constantly for responses. He was exhausted. His work was suffering, and success seemed further away than ever. I said to him, "You are chasing recognition like a hunter chasing a deer through the forest. The more violently you pursue, the faster it flees. You must become like a fragrant flower standing still in the garden, effortlessly drawing what you desire to you." I taught him to stop forcing his art, and instead to simply be an artist who was already recognized and valued, to create from that state of confidence rather than desperation, to submit his work when inspired, not when anxious, to rest in the assumption that recognition was already his in consciousness, whether or not it had appeared in form. The shift was remarkable. His art became more authentic, more powerful, because it was no longer tainted with the desperate energy of needing validation. Within 6 months, a major gallery discovered his work and offered him a solo exhibition. But by that time, he no longer desperately needed the recognition. He had already claimed it in consciousness, and the external recognition was simply the shadow following the substance. He had moved from being the frantic hunter to becoming the fragrant flower. He had stopped forcing and started allowing. This is the promise of allowing. This is the secret of letting it come. When you reach this state, you have moved from desperate grasping to magnetic attraction. You do not chase, you simply attract. You do not force, you simply allow. You do not struggle. You simply rest in the knowledge that it is done. Your desire is not somewhere in the future, waiting for you to work hard enough to deserve it. It exists right now in the dimension of imagination, and you claim it by assuming the feeling of already having it, not by forcing that feeling, but by gently, naturally, persistently dwelling in it until it becomes as natural as breathing. So tonight, I want you to examine your relationship with your desires. Are you forcing? Are you struggling? Are you desperately trying to make something happen through sheer effort and strain? If so, I invite you to release that grip. Let go of the cork and watch it rise to the surface effortlessly. Plant your seed and trust the law of growth. Order your meal and relax while it is prepared. Assume your desire is already yours in consciousness, and rest in that assumption with the quiet confidence of someone who knows the sun will rise tomorrow. Stop forcing it. Let it come. For in the letting go, you will find that what you have been chasing has been waiting all along for you to simply stop running and allow it to catch up to you. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and you are the operant power in your world. I'll see you in the next video.
My friend, you may not see it right now, but everything is working together for your good. The pieces that look scattered, the doors that closed, the moments that broke you, they are all being woven by divine hands into something breathtaking. You are not forgotten. You are being positioned. When God works, He often works in silence. He doesn't announce the process, He perfects it. What you call confusion is divine construction. What you call delay is spiritual alignment. God is rearranging the unseen realm to make everything fit your highest good. There are moments in life when the path feels uncertain, when what you prayed for seems far away. That's when the temptation comes to doubt, to question, to worry. But trust this truth. Faith begins where understanding ends. Faith doesn't need to see evidence, it creates it. When you believe that everything is already working out, life starts reflecting that belief. Circumstances bend to your inner conviction. The universe mirrors your inner trust. You begin to walk not as one hoping for favor, but as one carrying it. So stop asking when and start saying thank you. Every challenge, every closed door, every heartbreak, it's not rejection, it's redirection. The divine knows the path that will bring you the greatest fulfillment. What feels like delay is really preparation for divine timing. You may think God has forgotten your prayer, but He's actually protecting it. He's shaping you into the person who can hold the blessing that's coming. The seed doesn't question the soil, it simply trusts the process. It knows that what's buried today will bloom tomorrow. So today, release your worry. Let go of the how and the when. Your only job is to believe, to dwell in the feeling that it's already done. Close your eyes and feel the reality of your answered prayer. Feel the peace of knowing that God has gone before you. Walk as if your miracle is already manifesting, because it is. You are not waiting on the blessing. The blessing is waiting on your trust. Every moment, every change, every unseen shift is working for your favor. So rest in this truth. You are guided, you are favored, and nothing is against you. The process may not look perfect, but it is divine. And one day soon you'll look back and realize every delay, every detour, every disappointment was God's perfect choreography bringing you into destiny. Trust the process. It's all working in your favor. It always has been. Everything that happens in your life, both the good and the challenging, is part of a greater orchestration, a divine rearrangement that is silently unfolding in your favor. It's easy to trust God when things make sense, when doors open smoothly, when opportunities align perfectly. But the real test of faith begins when the pieces seem scattered, when progress feels distant, and when your prayers appear unanswered. Yet even then, behind the confusion, God is at work, arranging every detail with precision and purpose. What looks like a setback is often a setup for something greater. The delays you face are not denials, they are divine strategies designed to position you exactly where you need to be. Every closed door, every unexpected turn, every disappointment has meaning. There are moments when it feels like nothing is happening, but that silence is not absence, it's preparation. God is shifting circumstances, moving people, and aligning opportunities that you cannot yet see. The unseen rearrangement is happening in the invisible realm long before it appears in the visible one. Your responsibility is not to figure out how it's happening, but to trust that it is. Faith means believing that while you cannot see the full picture, the artist never stops painting. Think of it like a master weaver at work. From the front, the tapestry looks beautiful and complete, but from the back, all you see are tangled threads, knots, and chaos. Your life may look like the back of that tapestry right now. You see confusion, frustration, and delays, but God sees the front side. He sees the design, the masterpiece, the finished work. Every wrong turn is being woven into something that will ultimately make sense. Nothing is wasted, not a single tear, not a single moment. There's divine intelligence behind every event, no matter how random it appears. That job you lost, it's making room for one that fits your purpose. That relationship that ended, it's clearing space for one that will honor your worth. That opportunity that fell through, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God's rearrangement always involves movement, and movement often feels uncomfortable. But remember, discomfort is the evidence that transformation is taking place. When you learn to rest in that truth, peace replaces panic. You stop fighting against what's leaving and start welcoming what's coming. You begin to see that every delay has meaning and every detour carries direction. The unseen rearrangement of your life isn't about punishment, it's about preparation. God is making sure that when the blessing arrives, you are ready to receive it fully, without fear, doubt, or limitation. So, even when nothing seems to make sense, stay anchored in faith. Something divine is happening behind the scenes. The doors that close are leading you toward the ones that matter. The pain you feel today is creating the strength you'll need tomorrow. What looks like chaos is actually choreography. God is not late, He's strategic. And when the rearrangement is complete, you'll see how every piece was always working in your favor. Life is not responding to what you want, it's responding to what you believe. Every experience, every encounter, every outcome is a reflection of the inner state you carry. The outer world is like a mirror. It faithfully reflects the images of your inner convictions, thoughts, and emotions. When you trust that God is working for you, your vibration changes, your energy shifts, and the circumstances around you begin to realign with that faith. What you hold within, your faith, your peace, your certainty, becomes the blueprint that shapes the world you see outside of you. This faith, you cannot walk in doubt internally and expect clarity externally. You cannot carry fear and attract peace. You cannot live in limitation and expect expansion. The law of life is simple but profound. As within, so without. What's going on inside you is constantly being echoed in the outer world. When your heart is filled with trust, gratitude, and assurance, your environment starts to mirror that frequency. Doors open, people respond differently, opportunities find you effortlessly, not because you're forcing them, but because your inner faith has become magnetic. When you believe that God is working behind the scenes, you stop striving and start aligning. You no longer chase outcomes, you attract them through your certainty. You begin to see life not as a series of random events, but as a spiritual reflection of your consciousness. Every challenge that arises becomes an opportunity to practice faith. Every delay becomes a lesson in surrender. Every moment becomes a chance to choose trust over fear. Imagine holding a lens covered in dust and trying to look through it. Everything outside looks unclear, not because the world is unclear, but because your lens is. Your inner state is that lens. When it's clouded by worry, doubt, or resentment, the world appears harsh and uncertain. But when your inner lens is clear, with faith, peace, and gratitude, the same world begins to look radiant and full of possibility. The outer world doesn't change first, you do. And once you do, the world must follow suit. That's why inner work is spiritual work. Prayer, meditation, gratitude, and faith aren't just rituals. They are acts of realignment. They tune your inner frequency to the divine rhythm of favor and grace. The more you dwell in the feeling that God is for you, the more life bends to confirm it. Circumstances shift, people appear, solutions unfold, all reflecting the conviction that already lives inside you. If your outer world feels chaotic, don't try to fix the mirror, clean the reflection, adjust your inner state. Affirm peace even when you don't see it. Give thanks even when nothing looks right. Hold the inner picture of your desired outcome and let your heart rest in the assurance that it is already done. When your inner belief aligns with divine truth, the outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. So, choose faith over fear, gratitude over worry, and certainty over doubt. Trust that God is always working in your favor, and your world will begin to reflect that trust. The moment you change within, everything outside of you begins to shift. Faith is not the absence of reason, it is the presence of divine vision. It is the bridge that connects where you are to where you are destined to be. Faith stands in the gap between the unseen promise and its visible manifestation. It doesn't demand proof, it creates it. Faith is the language of the unseen, the vibration that communicates directly with the divine. When you walk by faith, you are not walking in darkness. You are walking in higher sight, seeing through the eyes of spirit rather than the limitations of the senses. The senses will always tell you what is, but faith tells you what is becoming. Your circumstances may whisper lack, but faith declares abundance. The world may show delay, but faith affirms divine timing. The doctor's report may read impossible, but faith answers back, with God, all things are possible. Faith doesn't ignore reality, it transcends it. It recognizes that the visible world is only a shadow of a deeper truth, one that is still forming beneath the surface of what you can see. When you believe, truly believe, you begin to align with the creative power that governs all things. Faith is your agreement with the unseen reality that already exists in the mind of God. Every answered prayer, every manifestation, every miracle first existed in that invisible realm before it ever appeared in the physical world. Faith is the bridge that allows that unseen blessing to cross over into your lived experience. Without faith, the bridge remains incomplete. With faith, the bridge becomes solid beneath your feet. Walking by faith means you no longer need to see the entire path. You trust the one who designed it. You take each step in confidence, knowing that even if you can't see the next stone, it will appear beneath your foot at the right moment. Faith is the decision to move forward even when the evidence is not yet visible, because you trust that God is arranging everything on your behalf. Faith is not passive, it's an active stance of certainty. It is holding the feeling of the answered prayer before it arrives. It is giving thanks for the victory before the battle is over. It is standing firm in peace while everything around you seems unstable. The world calls it delusion, heaven calls it alignment. Faith transforms your energy, your perception, and your outcomes. It magnetizes blessings because it operates in harmony with divine order. When you live by faith, You live in constant cooperation with the unseen hand that moves mountains, parts seas, and opens doors that logic says should remain closed. You no longer strive to make things happen. You allow them to unfold. Faith turns waiting into preparation and uncertainty into expectation. So even when life feels uncertain, keep walking. Even when you can't see the end, keep believing. Your faith is building the bridge under your steps. What begins in the invisible must one day manifest in the visible. Trust the unseen process, because faith has already gone ahead of you and made the way clear. Delays are one of the greatest tests of faith. They stretch you, refine you, and reveal what you truly believe about God's timing. It's easy to trust when everything flows smoothly, but when you're in the in-between, the place where nothing seems to be moving, you begin to question whether the promise will ever come to pass. Yet what feels like delay is not a denial, it is divine preparation. God often conceals his blessings in seasons of waiting, because the waiting is where the real transformation happens. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up the next day to see if it's growing. You trust the process. You know that beneath the surface something powerful is taking place, even if your eyes cannot see it. The same is true in your spiritual life. When God places a promise in your heart, it takes time to grow. The soil of your soul must be cultivated, your faith must be strengthened, and your character must be shaped to carry your praying for. A delay is never wasted time. It's preparation for divine fulfillment. In the waiting, God works on the unseen areas of your life. He refines your patience, teaches you surrender, and strengthens your trust. If you received everything you asked for instantly, your faith would never mature. The waiting builds depth. It develops spiritual muscle. The delay becomes the classroom where you learn how to depend on God completely. You stop chasing signs and start resting in His Word. You begin to realize that the process is as sacred as the promise itself. What you think is inactivity is actually divine activity. Behind the scenes, God is aligning circumstances, preparing people, and creating the right environment for your blessing to flourish. If it came too soon, it could destroy you. But in the right season, it will sustain you. There's a divine reason you haven't seen movement yet. Something within you or around you is still being aligned. Sometimes God holds back what you desire because He knows it would be smaller than what He plans to give you. When it feels like nothing is happening, shift your focus from frustration to faith. Every moment of delay is building spiritual capacity. It's creating roots deep enough to hold the fruit that's coming. Just because you can't see the evidence doesn't mean it's not unfolding. The seed doesn't stop growing just because it's hidden underground. God hides your blessing to protect it until it's ready to bloom. So instead of asking, when will it happen, begin saying, thank you, God, that it's happening. Praise Him not only for the promise, but also for the preparation. The waiting is not a punishment, it's positioning. Every delay has divine intention. When the appointed time arrives, what once seemed impossible will unfold effortlessly. The door will open, the promise will appear, and you'll realize that the delay was never a detour. It was the very thing that made the destination possible. God is not withholding, He's preparing. And when He's done, it will be worth every moment of the wait. The greatest secret of manifestation is not in asking repeatedly, it's in assuming the feeling of the answered prayer. The moment you believe that what you desire is already yours, the energy of your world begins to shift. You no longer live in lack, but in fulfillment. You no longer pray from desperation, but from gratitude. When you assume the feeling of the answer, you align yourself with the vibration of completion, and creation must obey that frequency. The outer world has no choice but to mirror the conviction you hold within. Belief always precedes evidence. Everything you now see began first as an unseen conviction in someone's mind. Faith works the same way. It's the inner acceptance of the unseen as already real. When you walk around believing that your prayer is answered, you begin to speak differently, think differently, and act differently. You shift from hoping it will happen to knowing it already has. That inner certainty becomes magnetic. The universe rearranges people, events, and opportunities to reflect the energy of that belief. Most people wait for evidence to believe. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. But spiritual law operates in reverse. You see it because you believe it. Your inner state is the seed, and the outer experience is the harvest. If your inner world is filled with doubt, fear, and waiting, that's exactly what your outer world will reproduce. But when you carry the feeling that it's already done, your outer life begins to conform to that assumption. It's not pretending. It's participating with divine creation. Think of yourself as the artist of your reality. The brush is your imagination, and your belief is the color that brings life to the canvas. When you hold the image of your answered prayer and let your emotions match it, peace, gratitude, joy, you begin to live from the end. You're no longer striving to make something happen. You're aligning with what already exists in the unseen. That alignment creates movement in the visible world. This principle isn't about ignoring what's real. It's about elevating your perception to a higher truth. You can acknowledge your current circumstances while still holding the feeling of your desired outcome. You can look at the present and still say, this too is working in my favor. When you live as if your miracle has already occurred, your actions naturally flow from that confidence. You stop worrying, you stop forcing outcomes, you start resting in assurance. Gratitude becomes your daily posture. Instead of asking, when will it happen? You begin saying, thank you, that it already has. That shift from asking to thanking is the mark of true faith. It tells the universe and God that you trust His timing, His method, and His wisdom. So close your eyes and imagine the feeling of the prayer already fulfilled. Feel the peace, the joy, the relief. Let it fill your entire being. That feeling is the bridge between your desire and its manifestation. Hold it, live in it, and soon the outer world will catch up to what you've already accepted within. Believe first and watch the evidence flow effortlessly into your life. Surrendering to the divine timeline is one of the highest forms of faith. It is the art of releasing control and trusting that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Even when your mind cannot understand the pace or direction, it doesn't mean giving up, it means giving over. It means resting in the awareness that God's plan for your life is far greater, wiser, and more beautiful than anything you could orchestrate on your own. Trusting the divine timeline requires humility. The humility to accept that your understanding is limited, but divine wisdom is infinite. When you truly surrender, you no longer force outcomes. You stop trying to rush what needs time to mature. You stop begging for doors to open before you're ready to walk through them. You realize that divine timing is not delay, it's precision. God's plan never runs late, it runs deep. Every event, every encounter, every pause is perfectly synchronized to prepare both you and the path ahead. The waiting is not wasted. It's weaving something eternal. We often believe we must make everything happen through effort and striving, but real trust begins when you learn to rest while you wait. Surrender is not idleness, it's inner alignment. It's choosing peace over panic, faith over fear, gratitude over anxiety. It's saying, God, I don't know how or when, but I know you do. In that space of surrender, the burden lifts. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable and begin to cooperate with divine flow. Every season of your life has a sacred rhythm. There's a time to sow, a time to grow, and a time to harvest. Trying to force a harvest before its season only brings frustration. But when you trust the divine timeline, you move in harmony with life itself. You understand that what's meant for you will never miss you, and what's not meant for you will never stay. The things that seem delayed are only being perfected. The people who left were part of the pruning process. The opportunities that didn't come through were protection disguised as disappointment. This is why surrender is the bridge between chaos and peace. It transforms waiting into worship. When you stop resisting the timing of your blessings, you open the door for divine acceleration. Ironically, the moment you stop trying to control the outcome is often the moment things begin to flow, because surrender aligns your energy with divine order, where miracles naturally unfold. So breathe deeply and let go of the timelines you created in your mind. Let go of the pressure to make things happen on your schedule. Rest in the knowing that the universe, under God's command, is not working against you, it's working for you. The invisible forces are already arranging what belongs to you. Your only role is to keep your faith alive, to stay grateful in the waiting, and to trust that when the time is right, everything will unfold effortlessly. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are right on schedule, according to the divine timeline that never fails. Every moment of your life, every delay, every challenge, every breakthrough is part of a divine design working perfectly in your favor. You may not see all the pieces right now, but God does. He's arranging, aligning, and preparing everything you need to step into your destiny. The unseen rearrangement, your inner faith, your willingness to wait, your surrender, these are not random spiritual concepts. They are the tools that bridge the invisible and the visible. When you learn to trust the process, to hold the feeling of the answered prayer, and to release your need to control timing, life begins to unfold with divine ease. What once felt like chaos becomes clarity. What once felt like delay becomes direction. Every event begins to reveal its purpose. So walk forward with peace in your heart. Know that the hand of God is upon your life, shaping every experience into favor. Believe that even now, unseen forces are moving in your direction. Keep your faith steady, your spirit calm, and your words filled with gratitude. You are not waiting for things to work out. They already are. Trust the process, because the process itself is proof that you are on your divine path. Thank you for watching, and remember, everything is working in your favor. Stay in faith, stay grateful, and keep trusting the divine timing of your life.
Hello and welcome back to the series. In the previous episode, you've learned that wealth exists in consciousness first, and that there's a parallel reality where you're already abundantly wealthy. Now comes the most crucial question. How do you actually access that wealth and bring it into your lived experience? The answer lies in understanding and applying the law of assumption, the most powerful principle for deliberately creating your financial reality. This isn't just another manifestation technique. This is the fundamental law that governs how consciousness creates form. Most people approach wealth creation from a state of hoping, wishing, or wanting. They hope they'll get a raise, wish they could afford their dream house, or want to become financially free someday. While these desires aren't wrong, they actually reinforce the very lack they're trying to overcome. Here's why. When you hope, wish, or want something, you're unconsciously affirming that you don't currently have it. You're operating from a consciousness of lack, and the law of assumption responds by creating more experiences of lacking what you desire. An assumption is completely different from hope or desire. An assumption is a mental state you accept as true, regardless of current evidence to the contrary. When you assume something, you're not hoping it will happen. You're accepting that it's already true in consciousness, and therefore must eventually manifest in experience. Let's look at the practical difference. Hoping, wishing, wanting consciousness sounds like this. I hope I'll be wealthy someday. I wish I could afford that. I want to be financially free. Maybe if I work hard enough, I'll try to manifest money. Assumption consciousness sounds like this. I am wealthy. Money flows to me naturally. Financial abundance is my normal state. Of course, I can afford what I desire. Wealth is simply who I am. Feel the difference between these two states. Hope and wishing carry an energy of separation and lack. Assumption carries an energy of certainty and possession. The power of an assumption lies not in its repetition, but in your conviction. A single assumption, held with complete conviction, will manifest faster than 1,000 affirmations spoken without real belief. Conviction isn't something you work up to. It's something you choose. You can choose to be as convinced of your wealth as you are of your own name. The only difference is that you've had more practice assuming your name than assuming your wealth. This distinction is so important that it deserves its own section. Most people are trapped in wanting money consciousness, not realizing that this very wanting is what keeps money away from them. When you want money, you're unconsciously affirming several limiting beliefs. I don't have enough money. Money is separate from me. I am in a state of lack. My wealth depends on external circumstances. The universe, or the law of assumption, is always saying yes to your dominant consciousness. When your dominant consciousness is I want money, the universe says yes, by giving you more experiences of wanting money, not experiences of having money. This is why people can spend years trying to manifest money without significant results. They're manifesting perfectly. They're just manifesting the experience of wanting money rather than the experience of having it. Being wealthy is an entirely different consciousness. When you assume the state of being wealthy, you feel abundant regardless of your current bank balance. You make decisions from wealth consciousness. You expect money to flow to you naturally. You're generous because you know abundance is infinite. You feel worthy of prosperity and success. This isn't about pretending or acting. This is about recognizing that wealth is fundamentally a state of consciousness, not a bank balance. When you consistently occupy the consciousness of wealth, your bank balance must eventually match your consciousness. The shift from wanting money to being wealthy is fundamentally an identity shift. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who needs to get wealthy, you see yourself as someone who is wealthy. You're just waiting for the external world to catch up with your inner reality. This identity shift changes everything. Your thoughts change. Instead of thinking, how can I get money? You think, how shall I use my abundance? Your feelings change. Instead of anxiety about money, you feel secure and provided for. Your actions change. You make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity. Your relationships change. People respond to your wealth consciousness. Your opportunities change. You notice and attract wealth-building possibilities. Now let's explore the mechanics of how assumptions actually create your financial reality. Understanding this process removes the mystery from wealth creation and gives you precise control over your financial future. Your assumptions about money create a continuous feedback loop that shapes your financial experience. First comes assumption. You hold a deep belief about money, conscious or unconscious. This influences your perception. The assumption filters what you notice and ignore in your environment. This changes your emotion. The perception generates emotions that match the belief. These emotions drive actions that align with your emotional state. Your actions create results that confirm the original assumption. You get reinforcement. The results strengthen the assumption, continuing the cycle. Let's see how this works with both limiting and empowering assumptions. Limiting assumption cycle. Assumption, money is hard to come by. Perception, you notice obstacles, problems, and evidence of financial difficulty. Emotion, you feel stressed, worried, and insecure about money. Action, you make decisions from fear, work harder for less, avoid risks. Results, you struggle financially, money feels difficult to earn. Reinforcement, see, I was right. Money is hard to come by. Now let's see an empowering assumption cycle. Assumption, money flows to me easily. Perception, you notice opportunities, resources, and evidence of abundance. Emotion, you feel confident, expectant, and secure about money. Action, you make decisions from abundance. Take inspired action. Embrace opportunities. Results, money comes to you through various channels with apparent ease. Reinforcement, of course, money does flow to me easily. The law of assumption responds to persistence, not intensity. A moderate assumption held consistently will manifest more reliably than an intense assumption held sporadically. This is why it's better to assume a state of general abundance throughout your day than to do intense visualization sessions once in a while. Your continuous background assumptions are far more powerful than your peak manifestation moments. Think of it like training a muscle. Consistent, moderate exercise over time builds more strength than occasional intense workouts. Similarly, consistent wealth consciousness builds more manifesting power than sporadic bursts of positive thinking. One of the most important principles to understand is that assumptions are more powerful than circumstances. Your current financial circumstances are the result of your past assumptions. Your current assumptions are creating your future circumstances. This means you never need to wait for circumstances to change before you can assume wealth. In fact, waiting for circumstances to change keeps you trapped in the old assumption that created those circumstances in the first place. Instead, you assume wealth consciousness now, regardless of current circumstances, and allow the circumstances to change in response to your new assumption. Most people are trapped in limitation consciousness when it comes to money. This consciousness operates like a self-perpetuating system that keeps them financially stuck, despite their best efforts to change their situation. Before you can change your assumptions, you need to identify what they currently are. Many of your most powerful assumptions about money operate unconsciously, so this requires some detective work. Here's how to identify your current money assumptions. Look at your results. Your current financial situation is a perfect reflection of your dominant money assumptions. If you're struggling, you have assumptions about struggle. If you're comfortable but not wealthy, you have assumptions about limitation. Notice your emotional responses. Pay attention to how you feel when you think about money. Do you feel anxious, excited, guilty, worthy, afraid, confident? Your emotions reveal your assumptions. Observe your inner dialogue. What do you say to yourself about money? I can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. I have to work hard for money. These phrases reveal limiting assumptions. Watch your reactions. How do you react when you see expensive things? When bills arrive? When others talk about money? When opportunities arise? Your reactions reveal your assumptions. Here are some of the most common limiting assumptions that keep people financially stuck. Number 1, scarcity assumptions. There's not enough money to go around. If I have more, someone else has less. Money is limited and scarce. I have to compete for financial resources. Number 2, unworthiness assumptions. I don't deserve to be wealthy. Wealth is for other people, not me. I'm not smart, talented, lucky enough to be rich. Good people don't focus on money. Number 3, difficulty assumptions. Money is the root of all evil. You have to work hard for every dollar. Making money requires sacrifice. Wealth comes at the expense of happiness, relationships, or health. Number 4, identity assumptions. I'm just not a money person. I come from a poor family, so I'll always struggle. Creative or spiritual people aren't good with money. I'm destined to be middle class. Breaking free from limitation consciousness isn't about fighting your limiting beliefs. It's about replacing them with empowering assumptions. Here's the process. Step 1. Clearly identify the specific assumption that's creating your financial limitation. Step 2. For every limiting assumption, create its empowering opposite. For example, money is scarce. Money is abundant and infinite. I don't deserve wealth. I deserve unlimited abundance. Money is hard to earn. Money flows to me effortlessly. I'm bad with money. I'm naturally wealthy and abundant. Step 3. Embody the new assumption. Don't just think the new assumption, embody it. Feel what it would be like if this assumption were absolutely true. How would you feel? How would you move through the world? Step 4. Live from the new assumption. Make decisions, take actions, and respond to situations from your new assumption rather than your old one. This is where the real change happens. Step 5. Persist despite evidence. Continue to embody your new assumption even when external circumstances seem to contradict it. Remember, circumstances are following consciousness, not leading it. When you change your fundamental assumptions about money, you set in motion what Neville Goddard called a bridge of incidents, a series of events, encounters, and opportunities that will lead to the manifestation of your new assumption. These incidents might seem natural and logical in retrospect, but they're actually the universe reorganizing itself to match your new consciousness. Your job is to maintain your new assumption regardless of what appears to be happening. Stay alert to opportunities that align with your wealth consciousness. Take inspired action when opportunities present themselves. And trust the process even when you can't see the full picture. An assumption becomes fact through a process called hardening. When you first adopt a new assumption, it might feel soft or tentative. But as you persist with it, it gradually hardens into unshakable conviction. And once it hardens, it must manifest as fact in your experience. The hardening process happens through repetition, consistently returning to your wealth assumption, emotionally embodying the assumption until it feels natural, making decisions from the assumption until it becomes automatic, and persistence, maintaining the assumption despite contradictory appearances. As we conclude this chapter, it's time for you to consciously choose your new wealth assumption. This isn't just an intellectual exercise. This is you literally choosing your financial future. Here are some powerful wealth assumptions to consider. I am wealthy and abundant in all areas of my life. Money flows to me easily from multiple sources. I am worthy of unlimited financial abundance. Wealth is my natural state of being. I effortlessly attract opportunities for financial growth. Money is my friend and ally. I am financially free and secure. Abundance is my birthright. Choose the assumption that resonates most deeply with you, or create your own. The specific words matter less than your conviction in the assumption. Starting now, your practice is simple but profound. Choose your wealth assumption and write it down. Feel into the assumption several times throughout each day. Make decisions from the assumption rather than from your circumstances. Persist with the assumption regardless of what appears to be happening. Expect evidence of your assumption to show up in your experience. Remember, an assumption, though it may seem false based on current circumstances, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Your wealth assumption isn't wishful thinking. It's the most practical thing you can do to create lasting financial abundance. The law of assumption is not a theory. It's the fundamental principle by which consciousness creates reality. When you truly understand and apply this law to your wealth creation, you'll discover that becoming wealthy isn't about changing your external circumstances. It's about changing your internal assumptions. Your wealthy self already exists in consciousness. Your wealth assumption is how you claim that reality and bring it into your lived experience.
There are moments in life when everything feels unsettled. Doors close, familiar paths vanish, and the ground beneath you begins to tremble. Do not mistake this shaking for destruction. It is preparation. When God is about to give you something big, He first clears away the small. The old self cannot inherit the new blessing. A greater life requires a greater identity. Just as the seed must break before the tree emerges, you too will feel something breaking within you. Relationships may shift, desires may intensify, and old habits will no longer satisfy you. This is not loss, it is birth. You may feel pressure as though life itself is squeezing you. Do not curse the pressure, for diamonds are made by nothing else. That tightening, that sense of being cornered, is simply the sign that you are being shaped into who you must be to hold the blessing that is on its way. And then come the signs, the whispers of alignment. Dreams so vivid they feel more real than waking life. Random encounters that speak directly to your heart. Repeated numbers, phrases, and patterns that call your attention. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Heaven is hinting at what is already yours. There will be a moment, often quiet and without fanfare, when a sense of completion rises within you. You cannot explain it, but you feel it. It is done. Even before it shows up in your hands, it is sealed in your heart. That inner knowing is the first manifestation. The outer follows swiftly after. Yet just before it arrives comes the test, the temptation to doubt, the urge to give up, the illusion that nothing is happening. This is the final gate. If you hold firm, if you persist in the unseen reality, then nothing can stop its arrival. So remember, when the world seems uncertain, when pressure surrounds you, when strange signs light up your path, take courage. God is not punishing you, He is preparing you. And the greater the blessing, the greater the shaking before it comes. Stand still, trust the process, and watch. For when God is about to give you something big, you will see this. When life begins to shake from within, many mistake it for something going wrong. They look at the confusion, the discomfort, the restless nights, and assume they have fallen off track. But the truth is the opposite. Inner shaking is not a sign of failure. It is a divine announcement that something greater is moving toward you. Just as the ground trembles before a seed bursts through the soil, your spirit trembles before a blessing breaks into your reality. The unrest you feel is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. The human mind loves comfort, familiarity, and certainty, but growth never comes wrapped in what is familiar. To receive more, you must first be stretched beyond what you have known. That stretching can feel unsettling. It may appear as doubts, sudden changes in your relationships, or shifts in your desires. Things that once satisfied you no longer do. The conversations you once enjoyed now feel shallow. The places you used to belong no longer feel like home. This is the shaking. It is the loosening of the old identity, the peeling away of everything that cannot go with you into your new season. Think of a house under renovation. Before new walls can be painted, the old plaster must be stripped. Dust fills the air, the structure looks broken, and yet it is not destruction. It is preparation. In the same way, when God is about to give you something big, He allows the inner world to feel unsettled so that you can let go of what no longer serves you. The unrest is His way of making space for the new. Sometimes the shaking shows up as an inner resistance to routines you once followed blindly. You begin questioning your choices, your habits, even your relationships. This questioning is not weakness, it is awakening. It is the signal that you are no longer aligned with the smaller version of yourself. A greater vision is pulling you, and it will not allow you to remain in the comfort of the past. Even your emotions may fluctuate. One moment you feel inspired, the next you feel uncertain. Do not despise this rhythm. Just as a tide must pull back before it pushes forward with power, your spirit often retreats before it advances into its new blessing. That restlessness you feel is the stretching of your inner world to contain something far larger than what you have known. The inner shaking is holy. It is the invisible hand of God rearranging the furniture of your soul so that when the blessing arrives, you are ready to hold it. If you run from the shaking, you delay the blessing. But if you embrace it, if you sit quietly and trust the process, you will see that every unsettling thought and every restless feeling was simply a sign that expansion was near. What you are experiencing is not chaos, but the silent preparation for breakthrough. And when the dust settles, you will see the beauty that was always waiting to be revealed. The moment a greater life calls you forward, the version of yourself that lived in limitation cannot remain. The old self must die, not in sorrow or tragedy, but in a quiet surrender to transformation. To step into the new, you must release the patterns, the thoughts, and the identity that once kept you safe but now keeps you small. Every great change begins with a death, the death of who you were, so that the birth of who you truly are can take place. This death is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle, almost unnoticeable. You wake up one morning and realize you no longer find joy in the things that once defined you. The desires you carried for years lose their weight. The roles you played no longer fit. It feels as though the very skin you live in has grown too tight. That discomfort is the whisper that your old self is dissolving, making way for the greater version within you. The old self thrives on repetition. It clings to familiar stories. This is who I am. This is how life works. This is what I deserve. But those stories were written by limitation, not by destiny. When God calls you into expansion, those narratives collapse. You begin to see that the life you accepted as unchangeable was only a reflection of what you once believed. As those beliefs crumble, so does the identity that was built upon them. The death of the old self is simply the falling away of illusions. This process can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. You may grieve what you're leaving behind, relationships, habits, environments that once gave you security. But remember, you are not losing anything real. You are shedding the costume that hid your true essence. The butterfly does not mourn the cocoon. It accepts that the shell was only temporary, necessary for a season, but not meant to contain the fullness of flight. At times, the old self resists. It whispers, "Stay where you are, do not change. It is too risky to grow." This is the voice of fear, the echo of a life built on survival rather than vision. Yet every great promise requires courage. To inherit the new identity, you must silence the voice of fear and choose trust. The crumbling of the old is not your destruction, it is your liberation. And then comes the breakthrough. As the old identity fades, a new one begins to emerge. You carry yourself differently, speak with more certainty, dream with more boldness. Life itself mirrors this shift back to you. New opportunities appear, new connections form. Doors once closed swing wide open. All of this is evidence that you have died to what was and awakened to what is. So do not fear the crumbling. Do not cling to what was never meant to last. The old self dies so that the true self can rise. This is the sacred exchange. Death to limitation, birth to freedom. And when you look back, you will see that nothing of value was lost. Only illusions burned away, leaving you free to walk fully into the life already prepared for you. Pressure is one of life's greatest teachers. When everything feels delayed, when doors seem locked, when you push and nothing moves, it is easy to believe you are forgotten or that your desire will never come to pass. But what you call resistance is not denial. It is preparation. The pressure you feel before the breakthrough is the invisible hand shaping you into someone who can not only receive the blessing, but also sustain it. Think of the seed beneath the soil. To the eye, it appears buried, suffocated in darkness, pressed under layers of earth. Yet within that hidden place, the seed is breaking open. Its outer shell is cracking so that the life within can emerge. Without the pressure of the soil, without the weight that surrounds it, the seed could never grow roots strong enough to reach the surface. The very thing that seems to hold it back is the force that makes its growth possible. So it is with you. The delays, the obstacles, the resistance you face are not walls, they are wounds. They are the conditions required for the birth of your greater self. When God is about to give you something big, He often allows pressure to build. This pressure may appear as financial struggles, relational challenges, or inner doubts. You may feel as if life is pressing in from every side, but instead of cursing the pressure, recognize it as evidence that something powerful is near. Pressure only exists when there is something within you trying to expand beyond its current form. If nothing greater were on its way, there would be no need for the stretching. Delay itself is an illusion. In truth, what seems delayed is simply aligning at the right time and in the right way. Imagine a great gift being wrapped, prepared, and delivered. From your perspective, it may feel late, but from the higher perspective, it is perfect timing. If it arrived too soon, you would not be ready to hold it. If it came too easily, you would not have the strength to keep it. The resistance is not against you. It is for you. It forges patience, deepens faith, and sharpens vision. Even in nature, the greatest treasures are formed under pressure. Diamonds are created only through immense heat and compression. Pearls are formed when an oyster endures irritation until it transforms it into beauty. In the same way, the heaviness you feel is crafting strength, wisdom, and resilience within you. Without the pressure, the breakthrough would be shallow. With it, the breakthrough becomes permanent. The key is not to fight the pressure, but to lean into it with trust. Know that every no you face is guiding you to the greater yes. Every delay is a pause for alignment. Every closed door is a redirection to a better one. When the breakthrough finally arrives, and it always does, You will see that the pressure was not punishment, it was the pathway. And you will stand stronger, clearer, and more alive because of it. There comes a time on the journey toward your greater blessing when life begins to whisper. These whispers are not random, they are signs, signals that you are aligning with the reality you have been calling into being. They arrive as synchronicities, vivid dreams, sudden insights, and subtle nudges that seem to point in the same direction. To the ordinary eye, they may look like coincidences, but to the awakened heart, they are confirmations that what you seek is already seeking you. Synchronicities often appear when you are closest to your breakthrough. You think of someone and they call. You imagine a place and suddenly opportunities to visit it open up. Numbers repeat themselves. Symbols follow you. Words or phrases echo across different conversations. It may feel uncanny, almost as if the world itself is speaking directly to you. That is because it is. The outer world is mirroring your inner state, showing you that your desire is not just a wish, but a reality already in motion. Dreams also carry powerful messages during this season. At night, when the conscious mind rests, the deeper self communicates in symbols and scenarios. You may dream of stepping into new houses, of flying, of being clothed in garments you have never worn before. These are not meaningless images, they are reflections of your inner transformation. They are glimpses of the life your soul is already inhabiting before your body has caught up. When you awaken from such dreams, do not dismiss them. Write them down, honor them, and recognize them as signposts that you are walking the right path. Then there are the sudden insights, the flashes of understanding that arrive without warning. One moment you are uncertain, and the next you know exactly what to do. A solution appears, an idea takes root, a new perspective opens. These insights are not accidents. They are the voice of the divine within you, guiding your steps with precision. What once seemed complicated becomes simple. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable. These insights are evidence that you are no longer struggling alone. You are aligned with a wisdom far greater than your own. The beauty of these signs is that they carry with them a sense of reassurance. They remind you that you are not wandering aimlessly, nor are you waiting in vain. Every synchronicity, every dream, every insight is a gentle tap on the shoulder, saying, "Keep going. You are closer than you think." The signs do not create the blessing, they reveal it. They show you that the unseen has already taken form and is on its way into the visible. So when these signals appear, do not ignore them. Welcome them with gratitude, for they are proof that heaven and earth are working together on your behalf. Pay attention, trust the patterns, and let them encourage you to persist. For when the signs of alignment become too frequent to dismiss, know this: the blessing is no longer just coming, it is already here, unfolding before your eyes. There is a sacred moment on the journey of creation when striving ceases. It does not come with fireworks or a loud announcement. Rather, it arrives as a quiet knowing within the heart. This is the feeling of completion. Long before the blessing touches your hands, your spirit already celebrates it as finished. It is as if a gentle voice within whispers, "It is done." You no longer chase, you no longer beg, and you no longer worry. You rest in the awareness that what you asked for is already yours. This inner completion is not imagination playing tricks. It is the truth of how creation works. Everything begins in the unseen, in the invisible realm of thought and feeling. The outer world is simply the shadow of the inner. When your heart reaches that place of peace, where the desire feels fulfilled, the outer must eventually reflect it. The quiet knowing is not separate from the blessing. It is the first stage of its manifestation. Many misunderstand this stage because it feels so subtle. There is no urgency, no impatience. The restlessness that once kept you awake at night has vanished. Instead, there is calm. You may still go about your daily routine, but something within you has shifted. You walk with a new confidence, speak with quiet authority, and carry an energy of certainty. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the heart's recognition that the work is already complete. Think of an artist who has just finished painting. Before the world sees it, before it hangs on a wall, the artist already knows it is done. The satisfaction, the fulfillment has already settled in the heart. The unveiling is only a matter of time. In the same way, when you reach the inner feeling of completion, you are no longer waiting with anxiety. You are simply allowing the unveiling of what already exists. This inner state is powerful because it silences doubt. When the heart knows, the mind can no longer argue. Circumstances may still look unchanged, but you are unmoved. You no longer seek signs to prove it to you. Instead, you see signs because you already know it is true. Faith has matured into certainty, and certainty requires no effort. It simply is. Often, this feeling arrives after a season of pressure and surrender. You wrestle, you question, you stretch, and then suddenly, without force, you rest. It is like exhaling after holding your breath too long. Peace floods the soul, and you know you do not need to chase what is already yours. You begin to live as though the desire has been fulfilled, and in that living you draw it swiftly into form. So cherish this inner completion. It is the sweetest evidence that your manifestation is near. The world will soon catch up to what your heart already knows, and when it does, you will smile, not in surprise, but in recognition. For you understood long before it appeared. It was done the moment you felt it so. The moments just before the blessing often feel like the hardest to endure. Everything within you longs for evidence, yet the outer world remains stubbornly silent. Doubts rise, fears whisper, and life seems to test the very faith you have been holding on to. This is not coincidence. It is the test of faith. Before the greater blessing arrives, you will be tempted to give up, to walk away, to believe it was all in vain. But those who endure this final trial discover that it is nothing more than the last threshold before the door opens. Faith is not proven in times of ease. It is revealed in moments of silence, when nothing in the outer world seems to agree with what you know inwardly to be true. The delay is not punishment. It is the refining of your conviction. Just as gold is purified by fire, your faith is strengthened by resistance. If the desire appeared the moment you asked, there would be no depth of trust, no growth of character, no expansion of soul. The test of faith is the divine way of ensuring that you are not only ready to receive, but ready to sustain what is given. In this stage, circumstances often appear contrary. Opportunities may close, relationships may shift, and unexpected obstacles may arise. Everything seems to shout, it will not happen. Yet this contradiction is the very sign that you are near. The old reality is making one last attempt to pull you back into doubt. If you surrender to the appearance, you return to the old self. But if you hold firm, if you refuse to give in to the illusion, You pass through the test and step into the fulfillment. This test is not meant to break you, but to reveal you. It shows you the strength already inside you, the unwavering conviction that does not bend with appearances. You learn to walk by inner vision rather than outer sight, and as you persist, the unseen begins to solidify into form. The blessing you once could only imagine now takes tangible shape before your eyes. Think of a runner approaching the finish line. The final stretch is often the most exhausting. Muscles ache, lungs burn, and everything cries out to stop. Yet the runner pushes through, knowing that the reward is not far. The same is true of you. The pressure you feel, the doubts that press in, are simply signs that you are at the threshold. If you can endure this last stretch, you will see the promise fulfilled. So when life tempts you to give up, when the silence feels unbearable, when the evidence seems against you, remember this truth. You are closest to the blessing when the test feels strongest. Stand firm. Refuse to waver. The door is not locked. It is waiting for your persistence to push it open. And once you step through, you will look back and realize that the test was not a barrier. It was the bridge that carried you into the life you were meant to live. Everything you have experienced, the inner shaking, the crumbling of the old self, the pressure before breakthrough, the signs of alignment, the quiet feeling of completion, and even the final test of faith are not random events. They are the sacred stages of transformation. They are the proof that God is preparing you for something greater than you have ever imagined. What looks like struggle is actually shaping, what feels like delay is divine timing, and what seems like the end is only the beginning of a new chapter. So when these moments arrive, do not despair. Embrace them. Recognize them as confirmation that your blessing is near. The greater the shaking, the greater the gift. The deeper the test, the brighter the reward. Stand firm, trust the unseen, and live as though it is already done. For in truth, it already is. Thank you for giving me your time and your heart. May these words remind you of the power within you and the promise before you. Stay strong, stay faithful, and watch how your life transforms. Thank you.
Good evening, my cherished friends. Tonight I want to share with you the one quality, the single most important feeling that separates those who successfully manifest their desires from those who struggle endlessly despite knowing all the techniques, all the methods, all the so-called secrets. That quality is naturalness, not excitement, not desperation, not even faith in the traditional sense. Naturalness. When I speak of naturalness, I'm referring to that quality of feeling completely normal about your desire being fulfilled. It's the difference between a man who has just won the lottery, jumping, screaming, unable to believe his good fortune, and a man who has been wealthy for 20 years, who handles prosperity with the same ease you handle breathing. One consciousness shouts, "Can you believe this is happening to me?" The other consciousness whispers, "Of course, this is who I am." The first man is experiencing his desire. The second man is being his desire. And it's the second man whose wealth will remain and multiply, while the first man's winnings will likely slip through his fingers within a few years. Why? Because naturalness is the signature of permanence. What feels natural to you must manifest and must remain. What feels unnatural, miraculous, or surprising will slip away as soon as the excitement fades. I learned this principle many years ago through a simple observation. I watched how people related to different aspects of their lives, and I noticed something fascinating. Everyone has some area of their life where they feel completely natural, completely at ease. For some, it's their health. For others, it's their relationships. For still others, it's their creativity or intelligence. Whatever area feels natural to you, where you don't question it, don't worry about it, don't feel you need to prove it, that area remains stable in your life. You don't wake up each morning wondering if you'll still be intelligent. You don't check throughout the day to make sure you're still creative. You simply are these things, and because you are them naturally, they persist effortlessly. But notice the areas of your life where you struggle, where things feel like constant effort, where you experience lack or limitation. In these areas, you lack naturalness. You're trying to be something rather than naturally being it. You're working to have something rather than naturally having it. A woman once approached me after a lecture in Los Angeles. She was impeccably dressed, clearly well-educated, articulate. "Mr. Goddard," she said, "I can manifest small things easily. Parking spaces, chance encounters, minor synchronicities. But the big things, the things I really want, a truly fulfilling relationship, financial freedom, my dream career, these elude me no matter how much I imagine them. Why?" I studied her for a moment, then asked a simple question. "When you imagine a parking space, how do you feel?" She looked confused by the question. "I don't know, I expect it to be there. It's no big deal." "Exactly," I said. "And when you imagine your dream relationship or financial freedom?" Her entire demeanor changed. Her eyes widened, her breath quickened slightly. "I feel excited," she said, "sometimes almost too excited to contain it. My heart races. I think this would be so amazing. This would change everything." I studied her for a moment, then asked a simple question. "When you imagine a parking space, how do you feel?" She looked confused by the question. "I don't know. I expect it to be there. It's no big deal." "Exactly," I said. "And when you imagine your dream relationship or financial freedom?" Her entire demeanor changed. Her eyes widened, her breath quickened slightly. "I feel excited," she said, "sometimes almost too excited to contain it. My heart races. I think this would be so amazing. This would change everything." There, I told her, is your answer. You manifest parking spaces because they feel natural to you. You don't manifest your larger desires because they feel unnatural, extraordinary, almost unbelievable. Your excitement itself betrays your disbelief. She was silent for a long moment. "Are you saying I shouldn't be excited about my desires?" "I'm saying excitement is fine when your desire first appears to you. But if you're still excited about it after weeks or months of imagining it, you haven't made it natural yet. You're still treating it as something special, something outside your normal experience, something that would be amazing if it happened. And that very attitude keeps it from happening." This conversation reveals one of the most misunderstood aspects of manifestation. People think passion, excitement, and intense emotion are the keys to manifesting. They work themselves into ecstatic states, they feel overwhelming desire, they generate tremendous emotional intensity, and then they wonder why their desires don't manifest. The truth is this: intense emotion can help you identify what you want, but naturalness is what allows you to have it. Excitement says, "This would be wonderful if it happened." Naturalness says, "Of course this is mine. What else would it be?" Let me illustrate this with a story that demonstrates the power of naturalness perfectly. A young man came to study with me, desperate to become a successful writer. He had talent, certainly. He had dedication. He wrote every day, imagined his success every night, visualized his name on bestseller lists, felt the joy of critical acclaim. But month after month, year after year, rejection letters piled up. His work was never quite good enough. Publishers weren't interested. Agents didn't respond. One day, in frustration, he said to me, "Neville, I've done everything you teach. I imagine my success constantly. I feel it deeply. Why doesn't it manifest? Tell me," I said. "How does a successful writer feel to you?" His eyes lit up. Accomplished, validated, finally proven. "It would feel like I've made it,"
Like all my struggles were worth it. Like I stopped him. That's your problem right there. You're imagining being a successful writer as something that would prove you, validate you, elevate you. To you, being a successful writer is special, extraordinary, a transformation of who you currently are. But it would be, he protested. And that's why it isn't, I replied. Tell me, how do you feel about your ability to read? He looked puzzled. I don't understand. I read. It's natural. I've been reading since I was a child. Exactly. You don't imagine being able to read as special or extraordinary. You don't wake up excited that you can read. You don't feel you need to prove you can read. You simply read naturally because it's who you are. That's the feeling you need about being a successful writer. I could see him struggling with this concept. But how can I feel natural about something I'm not yet? Oh, I said, there's your second problem. You believe you're not yet a successful writer. But in consciousness, the only reality, you can be a successful writer right now. Not trying to become one, not hoping to be one, but being one naturally as you're currently a reader. I gave him a specific practice. For the next month, I told him, stop imagining your success as a future event. Stop feeling excited about what it will be like when you make it. Instead, assume you've been a successful writer for years. Imagine the ordinariness of it. Imagine checking your book sales the way you currently check your email, routinely, without drama. Imagine interviews and book signings as just part of your normal working life. Make success feel boring, natural, taken for granted. He looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. Make success feel boring. Not boring in a negative sense. I clarified. Natural. The way breathing is natural. The way your heartbeat is natural. The way your ability to read is natural. Success should feel so normal to you that it would be strange not to have it. This young man took my advice seriously. Over the next months, I watched a subtle but profound transformation occur in him. He stopped talking about his dreams with breathless excitement. He stopped imagining success as this miraculous future event. Instead, he began to carry himself as someone for whom success was simply normal. His writing improved, not because he tried harder, but because he wrote from a different consciousness. He submitted his work differently. Not desperately hoping for acceptance, but naturally expecting it. He spoke about his writing career differently, not as a dream he was chasing, but as a reality he was living. Within 6 months, he had his first book deal. Within 2 years, he had 3 published books and a growing readership. But here's what fascinated me. By the time his success manifested physically, he wasn't surprised or excited. He felt it was natural, obvious, exactly what should be happening. That's how you know naturalness has been achieved, when the manifestation feels inevitable rather than miraculous. But how do you cultivate this feeling of naturalness? How do you make the extraordinary feel ordinary? How do you take something you desperately want and make it feel like something you simply have? First, you must understand that naturalness comes from familiarity. Things feel natural when they're familiar, when you've experienced them often, when they're part of your regular existence. This is why I teach people to imagine their desire fulfilled, not once, not in one glorious imaginal act, but repeatedly until it becomes familiar. Imagine it so many times that it becomes boring. Imagine it so consistently that it loses its charge, its excitement, its special quality. When you first imagine your desire fulfilled, it's thrilling. Your heart races. Every detail seems precious and meaningful. This is natural. You're encountering something new in consciousness. But if you persist, if you imagine this same scene night after night, something remarkable happens. The thrill fades. The excitement diminishes. The scene becomes familiar, routine, ordinary. And this is exactly what you want. When your desire feels ordinary in imagination, it's ready to become ordinary in manifestation. A businessman once told me about his experience with this principle. He wanted to expand his small company into a major enterprise, but whenever he imagined this expansion, he felt overwhelmed with excitement and barely contained nervousness. It feels too big, he told me. too impossible. Every time I imagine owning a major company, I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. I instructed him to imagine not the moment of expansion, not the drama of growth, but simply the ordinary, day-to-day experience of being the owner of a large company. Imagine the routine of it, I said. Imagine answering emails, attending meetings, making decisions, all from the consciousness of someone for whom running a major company is perfectly normal. At first he found this difficult. His mind wanted the drama, the excitement, the specialness of success. But I insisted, make it boring, make it routine. Imagine it until you could do it in your sleep. He followed this practice faithfully. Night after night, he imagined the ordinary activities of running a major company. Gradually, what had felt impossible began to feel possible. What had felt extraordinary began to feel ordinary. What had felt unnatural began to feel natural. The transformation in his actual business was remarkable. As his consciousness of being a major company owner became natural, his decisions changed. His behavior changed. His very presence changed. He began to naturally act in ways that someone running a major company would act. Within 18 months, his small company had grown into exactly the major enterprise he had been imagining. But by that time, it felt completely natural to him. He told me, "The strange thing is, I can barely remember when running a large company felt unusual. Now it just feels like who I am." This is the power of naturalness. When something feels natural to you in consciousness, it must manifest in your world, because consciousness is the only reality. But I must warn you about something that trips up many students. They try to force naturalness. They try to convince themselves that something feels natural when it doesn't. This doesn't work because consciousness cannot be fooled. True naturalness isn't an act you put on. It's a genuine feeling that develops through persistent imagining. You can't fake it, but you can cultivate it. Here's the key. You cultivate naturalness by removing the charge from your desire. Most people charge their desires with desperation, need, hope, excitement, or fear. All of these emotional charges keep the desire at arm's length, marking it as something special, something other, something not yet possessed. To remove the charge, you must imagine your desire so consistently that it becomes mundane. Imagine it until the thrill wears off. Imagine it until it's no longer exciting. Imagine it until it's just normal. Think about something you have that you once desperately wanted. Perhaps your current home, or your car, or your relationship, or your job. Remember how exciting it was when you first got it. Remember how you couldn't believe it was yours. Remember how special it felt. And now it's just your home, your car, your relationship, your job. It's familiar. It's normal. You don't wake up every morning marveling that you have it. It's simply part of your life. That's naturalness. And that's the feeling you want to cultivate about your desires before they manifest physically. A woman once told me about her experience manifesting marriage to a specific man. For months, she said, I imagined our wedding day. I felt the excitement, the joy, the thrill of finally being his wife. But nothing happened. He seemed no closer to proposing than when I started. Then one night, she continued, I was exhausted from imagining. I lay in bed, and almost without thinking, I imagined us in bed together, not on our honeymoon, but years into our marriage. I imagined it being so ordinary, so familiar, that I barely noticed it. I fell asleep from the sheer ordinariness of it. The next morning, something had shifted in me. When I saw him, I didn't feel the desperate hope I usually felt. I felt calm, natural, as if we were already married, and this was just another day. Within 2 weeks, he proposed. Within 3 months, we were married. But here's the interesting part, she concluded. By the time we actually got married, it didn't feel like a big event to me emotionally. It felt right, natural, inevitable, like something that had already happened long ago and we were just making it official. This is the ultimate sign that you've achieved naturalness. When your desire manifests, it feels obvious rather than miraculous. Now let me share with you a technique I've used successfully many times. I call it the boring technique, though there's nothing boring about its results. Choose your desire.
whatever it is you want to manifest. Now, instead of imagining the exciting moment of getting it, imagine the most ordinary, mundane moment of having it. Imagine the boring, routine, everyday experience of living with your desire fulfilled. If you want wealth, don't imagine winning the lottery or receiving a windfall. Imagine casually paying a bill, glancing at your bank balance without concern, or making a routine purchase without checking the price. If you want love, don't imagine the first kiss or the proposal. Imagine a quiet Tuesday evening, doing something ordinary together, feeling the comfortable familiarity of being loved. If you want success, don't imagine the award ceremony or the moment of recognition. Imagine a regular workday doing what you love, it being perfectly normal and expected. The more ordinary, the more mundane, the more boring your imaginal act, the more powerful it is. Because ordinariness equals naturalness, and naturalness equals manifestation. I remember when I was manifesting my teaching career, I didn't imagine standing before large crowds receiving thunderous applause. Instead, I imagined sitting in a quiet room, preparing for a lecture the way a teacher who had been teaching for years would prepare, routinely, naturally, without drama. I imagined answering letters from students. I imagined the ordinary work of teaching. I imagined it until it felt completely natural, until it would have felt strange not to be teaching. By the time I actually stood before my first audience, it felt like I had been doing it for years. There was no nervousness, no sense of impossibility, no feeling that I was doing something extraordinary. It felt natural, and because it felt natural, it unfolded naturally. Here's another crucial aspect of naturalness that many overlook. Naturalness extends to how you relate to waiting. When something is natural to you, you don't anxiously wait for it. You don't desperately check for signs of it. You don't worry about when it will appear. Think about something you know will naturally occur. Perhaps you know the sun will rise tomorrow, or you know spring will follow winter, or you know you'll be hungry at mealtime. Do you anxiously wait for these things? Do you worry they might not happen? No, because they're natural to you. This is how you must relate to your desire, not anxiously waiting for it to arrive, but naturally knowing it will manifest because it's already yours in consciousness. A gentleman once asked me, "But Neville, how can I feel natural about something that hasn't happened yet? Doesn't that require denial of current reality?" I replied, "You're thinking of naturalness as a relationship with physical circumstances. But true naturalness is a relationship with consciousness. In consciousness, your desire is already fulfilled. Making that fulfillment feel natural in consciousness is not denial, it's recognition of the only reality that exists. Think of it this way," I continued. Before you learned to read, reading felt unnatural, impossible. But someone who could read knew it was natural. The naturalness wasn't about current ability, it was about consciousness. Now that you can read, reading feels utterly natural. Has reading itself changed? No, your consciousness of reading has changed. Your desire is the same, I concluded. It doesn't feel natural now because your consciousness of it is still treating it as special, future, other. But in consciousness, it can be natural right now. And once it's natural in consciousness, it must become natural in experience. Let me share one final story that illustrates the ultimate power of naturalness. Years ago, I knew a woman who wanted to move from a small apartment to a beautiful house by the ocean. Her current circumstances made this seem impossible. She had modest income, no savings for a down payment, and housing by the ocean was extremely expensive in her area. Most people would have imagined winning the lottery, receiving an inheritance, or some other dramatic intervention. But this woman understood naturalness. Instead, she began to imagine the most ordinary moment she could think of in her oceanside home, making coffee in the morning and glancing out at the water. That's all. No drama, no excitement. Just making coffee, glancing at the ocean, it being perfectly normal and natural that she lived there. She imagined this scene every morning for months. She told me it became so familiar that sometimes she'd wake up and for a brief moment expect to see the ocean before remembering she was still in her apartment. Within a year, through a series of events that seemed remarkable to others, but felt natural to her, she was living in that house by the ocean. And when she invited me to visit, I watched her make coffee and glance at the ocean with such casual familiarity that you'd think she'd been doing it for 20 years. The strange thing she told me is that I can't remember when this felt unusual. It just feels like where I've always belonged. That, my friends, is the power of naturalness. When your desire becomes so natural in consciousness that it would feel strange not to have it, that's when it manifests. Not before, not through force or effort, but through the irresistible power of naturalness itself. So tonight I invite you to examine your desires. Which ones are you holding at arm's length with excitement, hope, or desperation? Which ones are you treating as special, extraordinary, miraculous? Those are the ones you need to make natural. Those are the ones you need to imagine not as future possibilities, but as present realities. Those are the ones you need to strip of their charge and their drama and their specialness. Make them boring. Make them ordinary. Make them natural. Imagine them until they feel so familiar that it would be strange not to have them. When naturalness becomes your dwelling place, manifestation becomes your inevitable experience. Not through struggle, not through effort, not through hope or prayer, but through the simple, natural, inevitable unfolding of consciousness into form. The feeling of naturalness, this is the secret. Cultivate it, dwell in it, make it your home. And watch as everything you desire becomes not a miracle, but simply the natural expression of who you are. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and you are the operant power in your world. I'll see you in the next video.